And then I don't know, this usually happens at 9 a.m. Eastern, so I don't know what it's going to be.
Okay.
How this is going to be attended.
Yeah.
But it's cool because...
Does it tell you when people are on?
Yep, they'll start popping in at the bottom.
Oh, really?
So here I usually we're live.
Right now?
Yep, we're live right now. Hey everyone, so welcome to another episode of Coffee with the Critters. I've been doing this every Sunday morning, except for not this morning, for over 2 years.
It's amazing.
Yes.
That's commitment.
Yes. So you'll see people joining.
Yep.
There's Susan, there's Bobby, there's Debbie. Hey guys. Hey Jude. So some of you guys are going to recognize Joel. Hey Lisa. So I just want to say welcome to another episode of Coffee with the Critters, and it's actually, what time is it? 12:38 here in Denver.
Yep.
And 2:38 back in Ohio. Hey Ashley. So for those of you that haven't attended before, hey Therese, this really helps you get your focus.
Yeah.
It helps you practice on our focus and control exercises. Welcome to another episode of Coffee with the Critters, and we have switched to beer without the critters. You're watching this from Colorado. We're out here at the ABAI 43rd Annual Conference. It's the Association for Applied
Behavior Analysis International.
Yes. And you're watching Coffee with the Critters. We're not from the Animal Behavior Center, but we put it on every Sunday morning at 9 a.m., except for a few exceptions. The Animal Behavior Center is an international educational center where we teach people about using positive reinforcement and applied behavior analysis with the animals in their care. So today I have an awesome guest with me that several of you may know, and if you don't, you will very soon. This is Joel Vidovic. He's a board-certified behavior analyst. He's currently in Toledo, Ohio. Well, not currently, but that's where he resides. He teaches at the Autism Model School. And tell us a little, and before I ask him to say anything else, I met Joel probably about a year ago.
I think so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Somebody referred me to Joel because I was looking for a board-certified behavior analyst to speak at there's a BCBA there, Dawn Morgan. I'm looking to learn more about how to apply ABA with my rescue pup, Otis. Good. Well, we're going to cover a lot of that today. I want to introduce Joel first. I met him a year ago. Somebody referred me. I was looking for a BCBA to come speak at our annual conference on animal behavior, modern medicine, health and nutrition, but I was looking for somebody that could talk about applied behavior analysis with the work with people. So somebody referred me to Joel. I looked up his biography. I did some research on you for probably about a month before I contacted you, and I was just like, holy crap, you're here in Toledo. I had no idea you were here in Toledo. He spoke last year at least twice and received rave reviews. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Where to begin? I'm from Michigan originally. Became turned on to applied behavior analysis while I was at Western Michigan University. Studied there under Dick Malott and learned quite a bit about how to apply principles of behavior analysis to a wide range of scenarios. And then primarily got hooked when I was lucky enough to get the experience to apply behavior analytic principles with a little 2.5-year-old with autism, and he couldn't talk at the time, and I got to work with him 2.5 hours a day, 5 days a week, and I did that for 6 months. That was like a practicum experience, and when I left, the kid was talking. He could ask for 9 different things, and problem behavior just went way down because he was able to communicate, and that kind of experience was very reinforcing, and so I just decided I needed to pursue it as a career.
And you're very passionate about what you do.
Oh yeah.
Very passionate.
Which is why I liked working with Lara, because Lara just drips passion for helping. and that's what's amazing, I think, about this science is that it's really about helping people. It's about helping animals. It's about helping people who are helping their animals. It's about helping people with children and solve problems.
Well, yeah, and with that being said, I mean, it's with helping people wanting to help animals, even animals helping, and through people's work with animals, it's helping people. Do you want to go ahead and talk about, I mean, since we met each other last October, you want to talk about the Ought to Be Enriched?
I think, yeah, we should.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just a really cool project, and what's amazing is that when you meet people who choose to help people for a career, then you want to help each other with each other's careers. And so Lara and I started to see, well, I came and visited the Animal Behavior Center, and we saw the work that they were doing, the passion behind the work and the energy. And we also saw some of the needs that they have in terms of, I've heard Lara talk now several times about how important enrichment is for animals to keep them busy. You know, we have the same concepts in education. Idle hands are the tools of the devil.
Yep.
And people are bored.
We're really big on enrichment. I mean, we have an enrichment team that does nothing but focuses on animal enrichment, because the animals that we get at the Animal Behavior Center they're mostly residents. We try to bring some in and not ship them back out, but give them back to where they can have long-term homes. But we use, thanks for sharing this video, you guys. I appreciate it. If you know anybody that you think this would benefit or have of interest, please share it with them. But the enrichment occupies time. And a lot of times with a lot of animals, especially in the companion animal community, those animals can become over-dependent on the one person, whether that's a caregiver, a handler, a trainer, hey BD. And a lot of times separation anxiety can be developed out of that. So some of the first things we teach any of the animals that come in, our goal at the Animal Behavior Center is to raise the bar in how we care for animals, empower them through giving them choice, control, and complexities in their environment. And enrichment is how we do it. And teach them to forage for their food, because if you're not there, I mean, studies show that if you're actually using positive reinforcement training with animals, it is the animal's preferred form of enrichment. So if you're sitting there training the animal, and this animal's coming in because it has separation anxiety, that relationship that animal forms with you through the training is not helping with the separation anxiety. So one of the first things we'll teach it is to redirect behavior through foraging for its food. But sorry.
No, that's okay.
That leads back into the Ought to Be Enriched program, where every day we are making enrichment because we cannot be training all of the time. So
it was amazing because right after I met Lara, my family got a dog, and it was just an 8-week-old puppy, and so I was asking Lara, what do we do? What do we do? And foraging was target number one, to keep her engaged, and also to keep her engaged without reliance on us being there to avoid problem behavior and keep them busy. And in the educational world, that's exactly what we teach with our students, and we teach teachers, is that students need to be engaged in meaningful, active activities. And so that's how this kind of came to be, is we saw, well, Lara has to create these devices for her animals to forage. They use wood, they use beads, they use pine nuts to hide them, and they're actually really amazing looking devices. They're kind of artistic in a certain way. The wood is dyed different colors, and seeds are hidden, and so you have a recreation of like a simulated foraging activity for the animals. And so simultaneously, we're always looking for meaningful activities for our students to be involved in, to learn all sorts of different work skills, from learning the fine motor skills to place a seed inside a tiny hole and then put a bead on top of it, to use a hammer and kind of punch wood into and fill a plug, I guess.
Yeah.
Is what you would say.
Yeah. So it teaches the animals, and we do this from the animal perspective. We're shaping complexity. The different animals we bring in, we're called the Animal Behavior Center because there's behavior concerns there. There's a history of reinforcement of undesired behavior that we now have to counter condition. We don't have the luxury of bringing in, a lot of times, young animals. We don't have that luxury of shaping the behavior we want before they can learn any undesired behavior. So a lot of times animals are coming into us after they're already 20 years old and have that history. So how those animals are reared has a lot to do with what they can do mentally and physically at this point. So we bring them in, and if we see that there's so much potential on where they can go, and a lot of the animals come to us from unenriched environments, so that has an impact on how fast they're going to even interact with something such as a wooden ball.
Yeah.
That could be a extreme feared object for a prey animal.
Yeah.
So we have to shape that, and we shape that enrichment in those small levels of complexity.
Yeah. We get, at least in my work, I get asked a lot, people call us when there's some problem behavior that their child is exhibiting. And one of the first questions we always ask, the complaint is, I need to get so-and-so to stop doing X, Y, or Z. And one of the first questions we have to ask is, well, what do you want them to do instead? And so everything is about prevention in that aspect. And one of the biggest ways that you can prevent is to have enriching activities to keep the animal busy.
Yeah.
Or to keep the child busy and having fun.
Yeah. And everybody that attends the live streams hears me say this quite frequently. If you have a undesired behavior that you want to change, you need to replace that with another behavior.
Yeah.
If you want that undesired behavior to stop. So you just reinforce. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. That's. And here's the great project that we're working on together is. Some of our students at the Autism Model School are now learning how to make enrichment toys for the animals at the Animal Behavior Center. And it's sort of a win-win situation for everybody involved. Our students are getting meaningful, engaging activities, and some of them are just thrilled to be doing this because they have an interest in animals. They want to be engaged and be a part of the community, and this is helping us get closer to that goal for them. So we have students who are building toys for Lara's animals, and we're dropping them off over at Lara's place of business, and
even the dropping off is
it's all part of it.
Yeah.
For our students, social skills is a real important focus for us a lot of times. So for them to come and meet somebody new like Lara and talk to her with eye contact and with confidence. It won't always start off that way, Lara, but we will work towards it. And then as we watch students when they come in to drop off the toys, we'll select social targets for them to make sure they greet Lara in the right way. And so they're learning appropriate work behaviors so that at some point after schooling is done for them, they're in a better position to get employment.
Yeah. And something based on that is when I found out when one of the students started making the enrichment, I asked, what is his reinforcer behind making the enrichment? Because at the time, they'll give the thumbs.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, sorry, our connection is weak here. Bear with us. It'll run smoothly on the replay. But what I was going to say is I asked the teacher, what's the student's reinforcer behind the behavior of making the toys? And she said, because he knows he's making them for animals. And that's when I asked, is it okay for him to come over and meet some of these animals that he's making them for? And when he comes over, he's just like...
Yeah. This has been something we have been trying to find for that particular student for several years, was a way for him. He was actually very clear about his interest. He wanted to get, when students at our school turn 14, that's when we start exploring careers and asking them about their interests and stuff. And he was very clear that he had an interest in animals, and who doesn't? I mean, that's, all of you who follow Lara, you have an interest in animals, and people with autism are people, and they have interest in animals too. So this was just a perfect match. And I see this guy in the hallway now. the confidence that comes with our students when they feel like they're doing meaningful work, their personalities change. It builds confidence. When you feel like you're a part of something bigger, you have a purpose, you're not just sitting in a class having somebody teach you all day, you're contributing and you're proud of your work, it builds a whole lot of confidence. And so I see this guy, he didn't used to come up and talk to me, and now every day he sees me, "Hey, Mr. Joel."
Does he really?
Oh yeah, he's like, "I finished all those toys. I finished them." That's he
cool.
wants to get back out there and learn how to do new ones, and we're in the process of expanding this right now to try to figure out. We're going to crank up production. We want to crank up complexity, and really everything on our end is trying to figure out how to systematize this so that it's a good learning activity for our students, but that it's also working. And what we're also so proud of is that we're supporting such a good organization who's doing good work using applied behavior analysis. And if you're passionate about helping, you want to help the kids, you want to help the animals, and you want to help other people who are trying to do that kind of work get their job done. So
yeah, and it's really cool on our perspective too, because we're giving back, and I mean, I love seeing just the smiles on the faces and what it's doing for the kids, and it's helping. And even like when he's come through twice, so we've introduced him to the parrots, and this last time we introduced him to Snow, the deaf and blind dog, our deaf and blind puppy, and Snow was so attracted to him. She would not leave his side. She even like kind of laid down by his feet. So it's just cool, that connection and that collaboration. And I mean, I'm out here in Denver to learn, just to keep my creativity going, and I have got a lot I want to discuss with Joel. I have some ideas that, different ways we can expand this, but I'll talk to you about that. And there's a lot of neat sessions happening out here this weekend.
This is sort of the big conference for people who are interested in applied behavior analysis. The variety that's here, the different applications of the science. That's what is neat, is you get an opportunity to work outside of your box a little bit and learn different ways that the science is utilized. So I've gone and listened to some talks about people who are using applied behavior analysis with animals. Lara's come to some talks about using applied behavior analysis either to teach language skills or vocational skills for individuals with autism. And
like I'm focusing on, several of the sessions that I'm going to are not focused on animals, focused on, today is action-packed, full. Did not aid my parenting skills. She said her applied
that's a whole different way. Yeah, well, that's a good comment. Somebody said that their applied behavior analysis training did not aid their parenting skills, and I'm reminded of a quote who actually by B.F. Skinner, who said that no one steps outside the causal stream. And what he meant by that is and I'm a parent too, and I have a 5-year-old, and I do a lot of things with my 5-year-old that I shouldn't do, because seeing her uncomfortable is very difficult to manage. You don't want to see your child uncomfortable, and sometimes you do things to avoid that. And that's what he means. You don't step outside the causal stream. Your behavior as a parent is still influenced by the same variables. You want to avoid pain, and you want to access pleasure. Seeing your kid happy makes you happy. Seeing your kid in discomfort makes you sad. And then as a result, you sometimes muddy the waters in what you're teaching. You can reward inappropriate behavior very easily to get it to stop. And it's hard.
Yeah, in one of the talks that you and I both discussed last year. Hey, Nancy. Nancy's from Key West. I met her when I went down on vacation. Anyways, we talked last year about how the misuse of attention reinforces undesired behaviors.
Yep.
And that's one of the number one reasons why animals lose their homes. And I know, like in my blog, I always write about Snot-Nosed Johnny in the grocery store, because if you want to see behavior issues, undesired behavior issues blow up, go to a grocery store.
Yeah.
So I always talk about Snot-Nosed Johnny in my blog. He is my character that I use to help teach people who are trying to understand about why their animal may be doing certain things, as well, here's how we reinforce undesired behavior with attention in the human world. And it just kind of helps them understand a little bit better.
Lara and I were talking, the more examples that you can apply this science to, the easier it becomes to digest it. So when you see it work with an animal and you're doing some training with a pet of yours, that's one application. When you see it work with a student in a classroom, that's another. Your own child, that's another. And multiple examples of effective procedures over time, you get it. You start to understand it. But certainly grocery stores or any public place where there's a lot of social contingencies and pressure for things to go smoothly.
Yep. So with that being said, I was just sitting here, I'm writing a paper right now on the fallouts of using force, control, and coercion to modify behavior. I'm coming at it from an animal perspective, and I'd like your input in this as well, because I was telling Joel before the live stream started that I love working with exotics. I prefer to work with exotics, undomesticated animals, from many things, from whether it's parrots, hawks, falcons, giraffe, alligator, macaques. I work with a lot of them, but I enjoy working with exotics because, and I was telling Joel, they can put your life in serious jeopardy if you do not understand the science of behavior and the science of consequences. This is why, and they're great educators to show people you may be able to get this type of behavior from not necessarily a dog, but dogs tend to be more resilient to the use of force, pressure, negative reinforcement. But you use that with a gorilla, a giraffe, an alligator, you're going to have probably immediate side effects that you're going to have to counter condition. And those exotic animals make such great educators, because even at the center, people have come over and said, I can use a shock and a prong collar. It's not that force or aversives don't work, but not without their consequences. So that's when I take them out in the center and I say, okay, there's a turkey vulture up 30 feet up in the rafters with a 5-foot wingspan. How are you going to use a shock or a prong collar on her? Because the results are going to be immediate. She's going to be coming after you. So, I mean, they make great, and I was talking to you about this yesterday, animals make great educators to teach people how applied behavior analysis works. And like you were saying right before we started this live stream, when you see those immediate results from applying this with children, that's your reinforcer to keep going, because it's so effective, and you see how it empowers the child.
Yeah, it hooks you. Here's a quick story. Can I tell a quick story?
Absolutely.
When I was young and dumb, and I was trying to learn, but I would make a lot of mistakes. And I had a child who I was working with, and I would go to this child's home to provide ABA therapy. And again, this is a long time ago, before I really knew what I was doing. And when I would arrive to the child's home, he would take my coat from the closet and hand it to me and say, bye-bye.
As soon as you got there?
Yeah. And, when I look back on my former self now, and I think about the mistakes I was making at that time, what I had done inadvertently, I didn't mean to, but I had created a situation where I had paired myself with aversives. I had paired myself with the yucky stuff. Too much work, too many demands, not enough pay. And I had a learner who was behaving accordingly. He was telling me to go away, and the sight of me being there became a signal to him that the conditions were about to get worse. And I wasn't doing that intentionally. I was trying to help him.
Sure.
I just wasn't very skilled at it yet. And that is a counter, or that's something that happens if we use punishment as a behavior change mechanism. You get what's called counter control, or you get people who will push back against the use of punishment to try to get you to stop doing it. And we need willing learners. We always say a good litmus test with our students is, does the student run to you when they see you, or do they run away?
Yeah.
And if they run away, you're doing something wrong. There was a talk the other day here at the convention where somebody said, if you're finding that you have to use reactive procedures, and I don't know about these data, but if you're finding that you have to use reactive procedures more than 5% of the time, you probably have an imbalance in the amount of work to pay that you're providing, and it's not worth it for the individual anymore. So really it comes down to how much are you using reinforcement, and how much work are you expecting to pay that animal, and only gradually, or that child, only gradually increasing the work to pay ratio, I guess. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it makes sense. Absolutely. And when we're working with, you're talking about pairing yourself with aversives, a lot of times, I mean, in the animal world, we'll call that poisoning the cue. When you're trying to shape a behavior, but you accidentally pair yourself with an aversive. So the behavior that you're trying to train, you're conditioning the cue to be an aversive.
Yes.
Called poisoning the cue.
Yeah, as soon as if you say come here, and as soon as they come, they lose something, or things get worse for them in some way, then they're not going to respond to that cue anymore. Yeah. That cue.
Or they're going to respond, but not in the way that you're trying to get them to respond.
Yeah, they'll go the other way.
So, I mean, with an example, I was trying to get Cello, the roller pigeon, to fly through a hoop. So I had to figure out where am I going to start to train this. So instead of holding it in the air and getting him to fly through the hoop, because birds don't like their wings touched, so I could easily be poisoning the cue. By if he flew through and his wings touched, it's going to positively punish the future behavior of him. So where I did is I started on the ground, and I always tell people, when you're training a behavior, get yourself very comfortable, because if you're not comfortable, and a lot of the animals I work with are prey animal, so I started on the ground with getting Cello to walk through the hoop, but I was squatting, and I kept shifting, and because I kept shifting, that hoop kept moving, even if ever so slightly, and it was moving right when he was trying to jump through it.
Oh, wow.
So I was poisoning the cue. I was pairing the hula hoop, my training session, everything with an aversive, and I saw it. The behavior didn't lie. The pigeon took off.
Well, that's something that I think is always a good point for people who are learning this stuff, is to remember that we're all always learning, and something that works with one client for me or one student doesn't necessarily work for another, and you learn through successes and you learn through mistakes and failures. And I saw somebody on here that just typed that their best teacher was the pony that no one could catch, and that's a good that's a really good way. That's a good comment, because you think, most people are probably running after the pony, trying to catch it, and they couldn't get it.
That could be the reinforcer for the pony.
It could be. Yeah, we have a lot of that where kids love to be chased. So if they run out of the room and you go chasing after them, they love that. Now we got a game. So it's just, you have to keep in mind that it's always a learning process, no matter what you're doing. I mean, your first client, your 300th client, you're always learning in that process by watching what the individual is doing, whether it's an animal or a kid. You watch what they do, and they're teaching you about what your next step needs to be. Sure.
And people and animals, we all move towards things we like, and we all move away from things we don't like. We all do it. There's several times where we move towards things we like, but there's a reinforcer. I mean, we move towards things we don't like, but there's a reinforcer behind it. And it's usually negative reinforcement, escape avoidance behavior. But several people don't like their jobs, but they go anyways to collect that paycheck. But what I was going to say is, when an animal first comes in, that's the first thing I do, because a lot of times we get in animals that we've never worked with before, because that makes me better at observing behavior. I don't want to know what the behavior issues are that you may label with that animal because I don't want those stuck in my head. I'd rather figure it out and observe myself.
So you don't want somebody to come in and say, my animal is doing X, Y, or Z, fix that.
Yes.
You want to have
Correct.
the animal arrive, watch the animal, and without having a label to it or something
Right.
predisposing you to...
Yeah, I don't want somebody to come in and say, this animal is very aggressive, because and then they usually go into detail about, I'm just like, I don't need it. You know, just give me the animal, and I will watch it for a couple of days. I watch the things it moves towards, and I watch the things it moves away from, because those are either I'm going to not associate myself, I'm going to identify and not associate myself with the things it's moving away from, and the things that it's moving towards. That's why we have this saying at the Animal Behavior Center, be your animal's deliverer of awesomeness. So you identify all those things it's moving towards, and then you pull them,
And you get them.
and you deliver them to reinforce behavior you want to see increase. And then pretty soon, and this is the way that I see it a lot, even if with wild animals, because I work with a lot of animals that can't be returned to the wild, so they have to be used as ambassadors to educate. I see this with a lot of different animals, but if you, a lot of times in the beginning, the only thing we have to pair, the only thing I have to pair myself with is food. But as long as I'm efficiently doing that, pretty soon the opportunity, because I've paired myself with so many positives, that pretty soon the opportunity for that animal to be with me, be near me, be on me, becomes one of the animal's positive reinforcers. Because it learns that trust and respect.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. I like your saying that be the deliverer of awesomeness.
Yep.
In our school, a lot of times when I'm working with teachers and our classroom staff that are working with kids, I tell them, you want to be the coolest toy in the room. That's what we try to teach our staff is teachers by nature, because we're trying to build skills. A lot of times teachers by nature have to give a lot of demands. We give instructions. We tell people to do things and practice, and we have to make sure that we're offsetting that, because work can be difficult sometimes. We're offsetting that with a lot of goodies. And yeah, if you can be the coolest toy in the room or the deliverer of awesomeness,
coolest toy in the room,
then you have a much more willing participant for training, for teaching.
Yeah. So, well, I'm not going to keep this too much longer, because Joel's been very gracious in giving us this time. I've been wanting to get you on here for quite a while. I'd also like to get you into an interview in the membership program. We'll set that up at a later date, but I think, I always say never put anybody on a pedestal, because it really sucks when you watch them fall off. But I honestly
just a matter of time.
But I consider you, you're one of my go-to people.
Well, likewise, this is Lara's doing some great work, and it's an honor to be able to be here and join you and help out in what you're doing. There's nothing better than being involved with passionate people and working together to help. That's the name of the game. Is I read a quote the other day that had something, when you leave this world, you'll either have created a more compassionate place or not. And the choice is yours. So your move. There's going to be more compassion and better training procedures, happier animals, happier children, or not. And so that's what we're fighting for. And it's nice to have a teammate.
Absolutely. And cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to this collaboration on Ought to Be Enriched. Stay tuned. And Joel, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, help support the work you're doing, keep an eye on the Ought to Be Enriched program, because it's going places.
Yeah,
we
hope
have
so.
people contacting. Just how do you want people contacting you?
That's fine. Absolutely. You can absolutely. The Autism Model School is the name of the school. We're in Toledo, Ohio. You can absolutely visit our website. Just Google Autism Model School. My contact information is on the website, along with several other people. It's an amazing place, and it's becoming more amazing with partnerships like this that are just creative and built out of the right place.
Yes.
More compassion.
So yeah, thanks to Joel and the many people that do the work that he does. The world is a better place because of you, that's for sure.
And there. Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys, if you want to find out any more information about the Animal Behavior Center, please feel free to contact us on theanimalbehaviorcenter.com. The students love the program at the school. Oh, cool. Oh, awesome.
That's one of our teachers.
Oh, it is.
Hi, Amanda.
Oh, okay. I recognize her face and her name. All right. That's probably why. All right. Anyways, cheers. Until next Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, you guys. Thanks for joining Coffee with the Critters, and thank you, Joel.
Thank you.